cultural Marxists decided that instead of barricades in the street, we needed to implement the strategy of the roads. And he traced how this was to unfold in the major institutions of power, infiltrate all of them, and use them for the culture of death. But according to Carol Quigley, the key to the plan, Walker, was one of the principles of the Frankfurt School, and they called it enforced coercive toleration. It was originally developed by Herbert Marcuse, one of the fathers of the free love movement, along with Wilhelm Reich, which that's hilarious, Walker, because Herbert Marcuse ended up mentoring Angela Davis, who mentored the co-founders of BLM, who also mentored Nicole Hannah-Jones, who wrote a book called The 1619 Project that led to the cancel everything that's racist, George Floyd, summer of 2020. They called those the 1619 riots, and that's when the 1619 revolutionaries told Planned Parenthood to cancel their founder, Margaret Sanger. So that relationship is just hilarious to me from a cultural perspective. But Herbert Marcuse called it enforced coercive toleration, Walker. And here was the strategy of enforced coercive toleration. You pose as the benefactors of the people. You use mercy or the appearance of mercy as a mechanism to win the hearts of the people, but you don't actually care. This is Machiavellianism, by the way, like right up the middle of the street, and we don't have time to get into all of that, but I know this is a shorter program, but basically that's a biblical concept that in Luke 22, Jesus says, the kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those in authority over them call themselves benefactors. But he says, but what does he say? But not so with you. So what does he say? They exercise lordship over the people. They tyrannize the people. Yeah. They pretend to be the benefactors. In the very next verse, in Luke 22:26, Walker, Jesus says, not so with you, rather let the greatest among you become as the youngest, and the leader is the one you serve.
Hey, Seth, stick around. Stick around for a few more minutes, okay? We'll be back in just a few minutes, all right? We can put a bow on this. All right, folks, you're listening to At the Core, Walker Wildman, American Family Radio. We'll be back in just a few minutes with Seth Gruber, filmmaker. 1916 Project is the film.
The American Family Association's mission is to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. We also support the church. Our goal is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. AFA aims to evangelize the lost and disciple the believer. We aim to strengthen biblical marriages and equip parents to raise godly children.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association.
Hi, I'm Ed Vitagliano of American Family Radio. I want to thank our listeners to AFR for listening and keeping in touch with us throughout the year, but also want to take a special moment to thank those who were able to contribute during our fall share-a-thon. We are grateful, so grateful to God for all the people who listen, who pray for us, who are able to support this ministry, to keep us on the air and keep us doing what God has called us to do.
Hey, Days of Hope family, this is Steve Tiger. As God continues to expand this ministry, we cherish your involvement, whether it's through praying, volunteering, or donating. You know, it can be hard to stay up to date on all that God is doing through 8 Days of Hope, and we'd hate for you to miss an opportunity to get involved. So today we're going to invite you to find us on social media to see regular updates on how we are loving and serving those in need across the country through our rebuilding, rapid response, safe house, and mass feeding ministries. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music at 8 Days of Hope. That's 8 Days of Hope. We want you to stay connected as we travel the country and commit to support us through your prayers and volunteering. If this isn't the season for you to travel, we invite you to consider becoming a monthly supporter of the work God has called us to do. You can sign up to make monthly contributions at 8daysofhope.com. That's 8daysofhope.com. Thank you for your continued support and prayers. We couldn't do what God's called us to do without your support.
We're used to instant everything, even when it comes to prayer. Prayers and motives were so selfish. I had a problem with food and my weight. I prayed all the time for God to deliver me, but I didn't want to change my lifestyle. I wanted God to give me instant results. We live in a fallen world, and even those who are redeemed have to deal with temptation, disease, loss, pain, and death. But here's the good news. God is willing to walk with us through every difficult situation. And in the process, He'll teach us to trust Him more. He uses those pressures to make us more like His Son, Jesus. So no matter what you're going through, don't get discouraged. There's nothing wrong with asking God to take it away. But we also can ask to see Him more clearly through the trial. In the process of waiting, you may come to know God in a way that would not otherwise have been possible. With Seeking Him, I'm Nancy DeMoss, Wagamuth.
Thank you for listening to this encore presentation on American Family Radio. And by encore, we mean previously aired, which means it's not really live, which means no new phone calls, which means thank you again for listening to this encore presentation on AFR. At the Core podcast are available at AFR.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Core here on American Family Radio. Walker Wildman here with you. Glad to have you with us on this edition of the program. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Just type in At the Core, the name of the show, and then click the subscribe button. And each episode will be queued up in your podcast library. Well, back to our discussion with filmmaker and producer of 1916 Project, Seth Gruber. He's with us now. And Seth, coming back into this segment, you were answering the question about, are the Marxists and the God-haters and the pagans just really this organized? Is the spiritual dynamic kind of bringing all this together? And you said it's a combination of both. But what would your comment be? And then I want to get information on how folks can watch the film, how churches can host screenings. But what would your challenge be to the church, to Christians, about what we need to do better at when it comes to organization, strategy, and long game approach to this cultural dynamic that we're in?
Yeah, that's right, bro. I mean, listen, like what I was saying in the last segment is that they took our strategy, right? I mean, the Great Commission to the very ends of the earth, to disciple, to teach them to obey all that I've commanded you. I mean, the totality of that commandment is massive. And the left has simply, Walker, done a better job of taking our commandment and our strategy and counterfeiting it for wickedness. In Luke 22, Jesus says that the kings of the Gentiles and these pagans, they tyrannize the people. They pretend to be the benefactors. They lord it over the people, but not so with you. You actually go serve, church. And so one of the key strategies of the cultural Marxists that Quigley tried to expose in his book, well, actually he tried to celebrate, he thought it was a great thing, was enforced coercive toleration. And the key and idea to that was that you pose as the benefactors of the people. You use mercy or the appearance of mercy or Christian virtues as a mechanism to win the hearts of the people and then screw them because you don't actually care for them. And this is how the cultural Marxists in their strategy of the ropes was able to succeed, by counterfeiting and stealing a biblical idea. And so I think it's really important for people to understand that while the Christians have religion, we have liturgies, we have worship, we have church services, much of that has become truncated, has become very weak, has become very pathetic. The left doesn't have that. They don't have like this worship of the Savior that grounds them, humbles them, reminds them who they are. So what do they have? They have politics. And this is why you notice politics has become somewhat of a religion in America on both sides of the political aisle, but certainly on the left. Why? Because they need a creed to live by. Man needs a creed. Man needs a religion. And so for them, secular humanism, paganism, that of course it's a religion, but the way they live that out, the way they ground their identity is through political action. And so they've simply become more active in promoting ideologies in the public square than the church has been. And that's why America looks the way it does. And with the 1916 Project book and film, we really expose how that happened, who these people were, where these ideas came from, and how we can begin to reverse engineer the sexual revolution.
Seth, once again, we're talking to Seth Gruber, producer, filmmaker of 1916 Project. Tell our audience where, first, we've got a lot of pastors and lay people listening now. How can church screen it? And then in the future, where you guys are going to release this broadly?
Yeah, any church in America can screen the film right now, which is super exciting because this is the church is a solution. So I brought the film to the church first, Walker. So if you're listening to this, go to the1916project.com. The 1916 Project, which is just the name of the whole thing, the1916project.com. Press host a screening. If you're a pastor, if you go to a church with a brave pastor, go tell them about it. Come on, help us out. This film will change your church. It'll mobilize, break hearts, boil blood, righteous indignation, get them ready title is The Lying, the Witch, and the War We're In. Pick up that book at our website, the1916project.com, or at Amazon, wherever you get your books. And we want to invite all your listeners to Washington, D.C., the day before the March for Life, for Life or Death Con. It's a conference to establish bold leadership in the pro-life movement that's unapologetically Christian now that Roe v. Wade's overturned. So that's January 23rd, the day before the March for Life in downtown Washington, D.C. And the website is lifeordeathcon.com. Come join us and be a part of rebuilding Christian resistance in America.